Maxence Lacroix to Chelsea, here we go! Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And finally, this one's dragged on, but it's over the line. Maxence Lacroix is a Chelsea player, medical booked in for today, defence upgraded. Let's have a little look at what's going on. Fabrizio Romano posted this: Maxence Lacroix to Chelsea, here we go. Agreement in place with official bid accepted by Crystal Palace. Broad terms in place last night and medical ongoing in London for the centre-back. £52 million transfer fee, Axel Disasi not included in the deal. Lacroix signs until June 2032. So wicked, man, wicked. Like, the first thing I will say, it's actually less than I thought it was going to be as well. I assumed it was probably going to be in and around more of the 55 million with 5 million add-ons, going up to in and around 60. We're not seeing anything about add-ons. It's just a £52 million transfer fee. Counter to yesterday's video, Axel Disasi is not immediately being included in the deal, but if Crystal Palace are interested in him and he can't get his move to Europe, then maybe that's one that's still going to be open for them. I think they've just signed another centre-back as well already, so we'll have to see what happens with that. So, no, look, we've signed Maxence Lacroix, so I'm absolutely buzzing. It's disappointing, a tiny bit disappointing. We're not seeing Axel Disasi go out in the same move. Like, that would have been great, wouldn't it? But at the same time, doesn't really matter. Axel Disasi has a lot of suitors, so it's not something I'm necessarily worried about. So, Maxence Lacroix, we've done deep dives. I've talked about him quite a lot on the channel already, but let's get into some of the minutiae of how he did last season. Maxence Lacroix, 26-year-old French centre-back. We bought him for £52 million, which I still maintain is a good deal. I've put 6+1 here because I read somewhere it's a 6+1, but Fabrizio Romano has only said it's a 6-year deal. So we've got him for quite a while, which is excellent. Absolutely love that. So last season in the Premier League, specifically for Crystal Palace, he made 35 appearances of the 38 games available and started all 35 of those games. So trusted. Absolutely love that. We'll just hop over quickly to the all competitions. 53 matches played last season. Yes. A centre-back who can play lots and lots and lots of games, right? Like I say, the biggest thing for me that we need to stop doing is swapping in and around these centre-back partnerships all the time. We had like 10 different centre-back partnerships last season. Absolutely wild. I do expect it now, regardless of whether it's a back three or a back four. Levi Colwill, Maxence Lacroix, barring injury, that's going to be the one, isn't it? Now, there's conversations to be had about, does Reece James start at right back and drift into right centre back, or play right centre back, or what happens with that? Who changes out? When does Achampong get minutes? Do you know what I mean? There's lots of other conversations to have, but the most important one, I think, just based on that alone, Maxence Lacroix, this isn't even just last season either. Like, if you look back at his time at Wolfsburg, man's making 30 plus appearances every single season since he was like 20. So he's fit, he's got stamina, he can keep on going. It's just such a relief, such a relief. No more injury-ridden, Benoit Badiashile or clumsy Axel Disasi or whatever. We've got a good Premier League level centre-back. Look, he's not elite, do you know what I mean? He's not the top level, but he could become that under Xabi Alonso, because we need to bear in mind the Xabi Alonso effect as well. So yeah, 88 minutes per game, 2 teams of the week in the Premier League last season, which is quite impressive for Crystal Palace at the end of the day. In all competitions, 53 matches played, 3 goals and 3 assists. So, because we're losing a little bit of that with Trevoh Chalobah, who looks like he's on his way to Como. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But Maxence Lacroix can turn up and score as well. So 2 goals and 1 assist in the Conference League, which they won, by the way, which is quite impressive. 1 goal and 2 assists in the Premier League. So, like I say, little bit of output there. We'll get to his heat map in a second, but you can see that, he's spending a little bit of time in the box. He made, 14 appearances in the Conference League, 35 appearances in the Premier League, 3 in the EFL Cup, and 1 in the Community Shield, which is obviously at the beginning of the game, and he played all 90 minutes for that. He plays largely under Glasner as the central centre-back in a back three. So this is interesting, right? Because obviously, in our heads, just because we've seen it as well, and just because we've seen it, it's not necessarily how it's going to be. Levi Colwill has been the central centre-back for a really long time, under Enzo Maresca, because that's where he likes to put his passing centre-back. Maxence Lacroix has been the central centre-back of the back three, and passing not really his game. Like, he's got reasonably good passing accuracy, but he's a defending defender, rather than the line-splitting Levi Colwill type, right? So the interesting thing about that is if you look at Xabi Alonso's back three at Bayer Leverkusen, he actually had his passing centre-back out on the left. And the guy in the middle was kind of, I'm going to meet all of the attacks like first, you know what I mean? Because I haven't got them here, but some of Maxence Lacroix's excellent stats are take-ons. So, or like players attempting to take him on, and he's coming out winning over 50% of those battles in the defensive third, which is absolutely awesome. So it makes sense potentially to have him as the central centre-back, to have him to meet those players face on. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Obviously, we've played 2 behind closed doors friendlies now with Xabi Alonso, and supposedly they've been starting in a back 4. What this actually is making me lean towards is the idea that we maybe do start in a back 4 and transition into the 3, a little bit like what Enzo Maresca did, but not with inverting midfielders, with the likes of a Marco Palestra or whoever's on your left back / left wing back, bombing forward to become the wing back sort of thing. So in terms of player position, central centre back is where he's been playing, but I feel like he'd probably be quite comfortable on the right as well. Strengths, positioning, ground duels, aerial duels. Man is a defending defender. None of that, like, we've got Levi Colwill for the passing stuff. Our defensive stats, he's 6'4" as well, which I think is really important because, Fofana, not the tallest guy in the world, he's just sturdy, man. He's just sturdy. One of our big problems last season, right, was defending set pieces and in the box and things being a little bit calamitous. With a player like Maxence Lacroix there, that's going to be a lot less of an issue. Positioning, ground duels, aerial duels. Aerial duels is so important, man, to have someone that's good at aerial duels, because we don't really have anyone who's good at aerial duels, to be honest. And my favourite thing, weaknesses, no outstanding weaknesses. Nothing obvious to take advantage of. He's just a good defender. We look at the heat map as well. That completely denotes that he was that central centre-back. He wasn't ever really playing on the left or on the right. And as you can see, or a lot of time spent in the box, but he was often coming out to meet those attacking players and never got past the halfway line either, which is, good. Because we saw, you see with like Trevoh Chalobah and stuff, and even Josh Achiampong loves to make like a darting run from centre-back sometimes, doesn't he, to start attacks. But you're probably not going to get much of that with Maxence Lacroix. Looks like majoritively he is going to just be defending. And the other thing you can see there is, like I said before, he's getting in the box to be a menace and try and score goals in attacking situations, corners, set pieces as well, which is good. So, sigh of relief, bit of a sigh of relief, not because I didn't think it was going to happen, just because it's taken such a long time, and there was little moments where it was like, Arsenal are maybe keeping an eye on what's going on with Maxence Lacroix. But it feels like it's just been going on for ages. So now what happens next with the centre-back situation? Like, Axel Disasi obviously seems to be the primary centre-back that we're looking to get rid of. We can see that because there's the conversation with Roma that's just been had. There's a conversation that's been had with Crystal Palace, albeit he wasn't involved in the deal. Now, is that because we've just seen with Alejandro Garnacho and Morgan Rogers is if you sell these players within 45 days of each other, it counts as a swap deal, and then you only get the net profit on the books rather than the gross profit on the books. So maybe it's about trying to find the right way, to find more legal loopholes in terms of the finances and stuff. So, I'm not writing it off completely that Disasi goes to Crystal Palace, but also it's not necessarily his first choice. He wants to go back to Europe. That is the same conversation that we had last season as well. He had offers on the table from Bournemouth, from West Ham, from Wolves, and he was like, no, I want to go to Europe. That ended up him being in the bomb squad for 6 months. So I don't think he'll make decisions like that this time. If he hasn't managed to find his route to Europe because no one's willing to pay the money we want for him, and we won't loan him to a European club, I really don't think we will. It doesn't benefit us really, because in the grand scheme of things, it just takes up we only get 6 international spots. One of them is already taken up by Jesse Derry, and we're going to want to use the rest of those for your David Washingtons and these other young players that need to go out and get some game time. We'll probably loan a couple of players to Strasbourg, as we always do as well. And I think we have 3 slots taken up, one, 2 or 3 slots at any given moment being taken up at Strasbourg as well, or maybe it's just 2. But at the same time, those international slots are really, really valuable, and we don't want to just go using them up right now on an Axel Disasi to Roma because it suits them and it gets him off our books. Disasi, Benoit Badiashile, these guys might go into later into the window when teams start to be like, we really need a centre-back. Chelsea have got some. Let's just pay the money and get it over the line. I'm sure that's what Chelsea are banking on, but either way, I do not expect Disasi to remain in the bomb squad. Either way, Maxence Lacroix, here we go. Medical today, so it looks like, I think they're flying out to Australia today to begin the pre-season tour, so he might not make it in time to go with the squad, but it looks like he's going to be available for pre-season as well. I'm not actually 100% sure, that's all I've seen so far, but he went to the World Cup and he did play a little bit, so, you know, maybe he takes a holiday like Morgan Rogers will be, for instance, and we'll have to see what happens with that, but either way, he's here. We've done it. We've finally bought a centre-back that isn't young potential or a cheap European option. We've gone and spent decent money and we haven't been rinsed on it either. This is the other really good thing. 52 million for a Premier League standard centre-back is good. When you consider that's the same money that Tottenham paid for Van Hecke, and he only had 1 year left on his deal when Maxence Lacroix had 3 years left on his deal. It's not a bargain and we haven't been rinsed. It's just what you would expect to pay. So that's enough about waxing lyrical about Maxence Lacroix, although I'm very excited about it just to have a centre-back that can actually centre-back. Do you know what I mean? We're going to move on to talk about another centre-back in Trevoh Chalobah. But guys, if you have made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so Trevoh Chalobah looks like he's probably going to be the next centre-back to go out. Let's have a look at what's going on. Fabrizio Romano posted this exclusive. Como send improved bid to Chelsea for Trevoh Chalobah. Talks ongoing. Como offer 25 million euros fixed fee and 5 million euros add-ons, but easy ones to reach, making package worth 30 million euros almost guaranteed. Chalobah keen on Como move. So I guess this is the reason why this whole thing has taken a little while, because if that is what we're going to accept, that is ultimately nearly 10 mil less in pounds than what we initially wanted for Trevoh Chalobah. 25 million is like 20 million pounds, and with the 5 million add-ons, it will go up to in and around 25 million pounds for the full package for Trevoh Chalobah. So we're not even necessarily going to make the 30 on him, but at this point, it's chump change, it's pennies. What would, you know, we've just spent 117 million pounds on Morgan Rogers. I'm keen for Chalobah to just get out and move on and like be able to be a footballer in a team that actually wants him to be there. I know it sounds silly because, you know, you get every penny you can for every player, but at the same time, we've still got so many players to sell. It's ridiculous. You know, when Pedro Neto, Enzo Fernandez, Malagusto, Benoit Badiashile, Axel Disasi, it's like, yeah, it will suck to not get the extra 5-10 mil that we maybe could have got if we'd have held out for Chalobah, but I think the best thing to do is just to facilitate that move for him as soon as possible, and then we can move on and direct our resources at the rest of the players that we want to bring in and the rest of the players that we want to move out, with having made £25 million book profit from Trevoh Chalobah. I just want to see this one happen soon. I will follow Trevoh Chalobah's career with interest as well. You know, he's been an academy boy for a really, really long time. Like, not many academy players get to 27. Do you know what I mean? Like 26, 27 years old. Like, we've normally sold them off by then. So, this, you know, it's one of those, isn't it? Trevoh Chalobah's been around for like the longest time, and it's the end of the story that started with his brother, Nathaniel Chalobah, which, yeah, I think he was, rated the same kind of thing as Trev was. He was a midfielder that got into the first team a few times and never kicked on. So we've had a Chalobah in the squad for a really, really long time. I'm really sad it hasn't worked out for Trevoh Chalobah, and he hasn't turned into the level of centre-back that we need him to be. And as much as I would love to see him stick around as a backup, I just think this is the best thing for him. Let me know what you think in the comments. Right, next up, we're going to talk about the midfield bomber and who it looks like it's not going to be. Chelsea Dodgers posted this. Chelsea have not at any point inquired about Bruno Guimaraes and are not in the race for him. This was from Bobby Manzi and the Mail Sport, but also has been echoed by Alex Crook of TalkSport and Ben Jacobs. So look, I'm not mad surprised. The thing is, like, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Bruno G in the squad. Of course, what a phenomenal player. Arsenal have been talking to him for a really long time, and to be honest, that's the main reason that I kind of wanted this one to go through, would just be to see the salt from Arsenal fans. Look, if there's still an opportunity that this happens, like a very small one, albeit like as the Morgan Rogers one was a very small one. You never know what's going to happen. At the moment, it looks like we're not in the race for Bruno G, and that kind of makes sense when you look at the money. You know, Arsenal were going in with a 70 mil bid, and Newcastle were already like, nope, we want 85 for him. And, you know, there's going to be that kind of conversation there. I don't necessarily want to be dragged into a bidding war for Bruno G at the end of the day. There are other options out there. You know, there's still talks about Alex Scott. There's still talks about Adam Wharton potentially as well. You know, and apparently we're going to do something important in midfield. And if that didn't include Bruno G at the beginning, then clearly clearly our targets are set somewhere else. And maybe that does say that there's still the opportunity for the Adam Wharton deal to go through, based on the fact that Bedadi Egbali himself was talking to Steve Parish. And I don't think, it seems weird, doesn't it? Because Maxence Lacroix, we haven't got him for a huge amount of money. And I know there was the Disassi thing as well, but is that the kind of money, the kind of profile of player that requires your owner to go and speak to their owner? For me, I'm still thinking that Adam Wharton is probably the guy, but, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But either way, it looks like Bruno G is not going to be that guy. Who do you want to see for the midfield bomber? You know, Camavinga's been mentioned, or he looks good, but apparently he's been injured a lot, so maybe that's not a good idea to go and spend a load of money on him. That leaves Adam Wharton, Alex Scott. Are there any other big midfielders that could come in and instantly change our team? Let me know what you think in the comments. And we're going to wrap up today's video with a story that might be the most important one. And it's weird because it's really a tiny, tiny story, but it shows more change in the right direction from Blueco, right? This is directly from Simon Phillips, who, you know, has the sports Substack that we comment on quite a lot. He said, Chelsea are looking for homegrown options for a third choice goalkeeper, as exclusively reported a few weeks back. Both Jason Steele and Fraser Forster have so far been considered, amongst others. Look, this is not a big bombastic transfer story or saga to talk about, but it's so important. I have been saying for the last 2 seasons, the third choice goalkeeper, the backup goalkeeper in your squad needs to be an older, experienced player. And we always had one for the longest time. Hilario, this isn't in order, but Willy Caballero, Mark Schwarzer, Asmir Begovic, Rob Green, you know, up until recently it was Marcus Bettinelli. Like, these guys aren't going to play, but having the experience there, look, if your goalkeeper gets injured and you've got issues or whatever, you know that they can come in and play. Willy Caballero, for instance, played quite a lot because we had Kepa Arrizabalaga at the time. And things kept going wrong. So Willy Caballero got a decent amount of game time, truth be told. And for the last few seasons, we've just been relying on youngsters, you know, Gaga Slanina, and obviously for the last 2 seasons, it's been Philip Jorgensen, which is, you know, your backup goalkeeper shouldn't be someone that needs to develop and needs game time. I think with the whole Philip Jorgensen saga, I actually feel mostly bad for him, even though he's been terrible. 8 goals against PSG and, you know, not thanking the fans for flying out to Paris to watch it happen and all of that kind of stuff. Like, look, I think the right thing to do for him is to move on. But buying him in the first place was a bad idea because he was 20 when we bought him, 21, something like that, and he'd just come from playing a reasonable amount at the team that he came from in Spain. And then you throw him into a Chelsea team where he gets 12 games a season, 9 games a season. Like, you know, he wasn't playing, so he wasn't getting the opportunity to develop. And he's a young player. So, for me, one of the big lessons that I've been saying for ages that Blueco, I think about how tragic the goalkeeping situation has been for absolutely ages. Rob Sanchez has been dropped by 3 managers in a row. Literally 3 managers in a row every single season. He was dropped by Pochettino for Jordi Petrovic. He was dropped by Enzo Maresca, and who tried Philip Jorgensen, who then dropped Philip Jorgensen and went back to Sanchez, and then Sanchez was dropped by Liam Rosinia, and the same thing happened. Sanchez kept on getting dropped, and the only option is back. Look, with the Pochettino season, it was all right, because Jordi Petrovic ended up playing out the rest of the season and was really good. But recently, it's just been Philip Jorgensen has been our option. So it's like, all right, Rob Sanchez is having a bad day, he's having a bad time, we need to, you know, try someone else, and all we've got is Philip Jorgensen, who's a young player that hasn't been able to develop. If you've got Jason Steele, you know, 35-year-old Brighton goalkeeper, whatever, but Fraser Forster, they're not necessarily amazing goalkeepers, but they're not developing. Do you know what I mean? They know they're Premier League experienced goalkeepers that know just how to come in, do a job, get it done. And for the most part, you're probably never going to see them either. You know, what we're expecting to see is Rob Sanchez versus Mike Penders. I think Mike Penders is pretty quickly going to win that battle, to be honest. But in the situation that, look, imagine, for instance, Mike Penders wins the battle. In January, Rob Sanchez wants to leave because he's like, I'm not getting any game time. I'm 28 years old. I need to go and play football somewhere. Cool. We sell Robert Sanchez and we don't instantly go and get another keeper because you know you've got like a Fraser Forster knocking around. And they're good for training. They're good for vibes. We had one for the longest time, and we haven't had one for the last few years, and the goalkeeping situation has been an absolute nightmare. And there's historical precedent, like I mentioned. Like Asmir Begovic was another one. He got loads of game time. We did not buy Asmir Begovic to come and be our first team goalkeeper. We got him from Stoke. But he got loads of game time because we had goalkeeping issues, and he helped us through those moments. Willy Caballero was the same. Willy Caballero was like 38, and I think he was like getting towards becoming part of the coaching staff, but also he was just like, right, okay, you know, Maurizio Sarri was like, Willie, I need you. And he was like, yeah, cool, I'm here, because Kepa wasn't doing the business. So look, I think for on the field and mostly off the field, having an experienced third choice goalkeeper is just what you should do when you're trying to be a big team. Like 100% it's just what you should do. You can't, like, goalkeepers are so different to outfield players, you know, and even look at Arsenal. Like, look at Arsenal lost the FA Cup because they put Kepa in goal. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, for the most part, your first team goalkeeper is your first team goalkeeper, and they should play as many minutes as are available, but you need someone there just in case. And that's just how it seems to me. So just let me know what you think, guys. Look, I'm not enamoured by Jason Steele or Fraser Forster joining the team, but it shows a step in the right direction in terms of changing the mentality around what you actually need in a squad. Because, look, we're coming from, like, going into the Blueco era, we came from being one of the biggest teams in the world and winning a lot, and, you know, all that experience is there. Blueco come in and completely rip up everything. They fire all the stuff, they change the model, they're like, we're going to do this our way and it's going to be brilliant. Truth of the fact is, it hasn't worked, do you know what I mean, for the most part. And it's not to say that, you know, things that they're doing, like focusing on young players, and, you know, it's not to say that making that a big part of your focus can't work, but when you completely eliminate the experience element from a team, you're asking kids who with no winning experience to go out and win you the biggest honours, and it's probably just not going to happen. So this, for me, this is huge in pointing towards the fact that the mentality is changing about how to build a winning squad. And look, this has got to be coming from the Xabi Alonso thing as well. Xabi Alonso will have been in squads where they have an older, experienced backup keeper. And he obviously values experience in the team. That's why we looked at Granit Xhaka. That's why we looked at Pep Travadia. That's why we've been looking at John Stones. Having experience in the team, even if they're not going to play a lot, is really, really, really important. And look, for me, this is a good sign. It's not exciting. It's not like, oh, I can't wait to see this guy at Chelsea. I can't wait to see what you can do on the pitch. Like, whatever, man. 30, 40-year-old goalkeepers, do you know what I mean? It just is what it is. Like, Mark Schwarzer was 40 when he was playing for us. And he got a little bit of game time at the end of the day, and it's just how it should be. Like, I think it would be really good for the squad to have this kind of goalkeeper around, another older head around, one that isn't going to complain about not getting loads of minutes and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, for me, not a very bombastic, exciting story, but a really important one nonetheless. Let me know what you think in the comments. And guys, that's where we're going to wrap up the video today, but I want to know what you think about everything that we've talked about. Maxence Lacroix to Chelsea, £52 million. Here we go. Oh, the squad's starting to look stacked again, man. The squad is starting to look stacked. I'm so excited. Trevoh Chalobah does look like he's on his way to Como. Are you aggrieved at all that it looks like it's going to be less than, not even 30 mil? Like, in full, if this deal goes through, it'll be 25 mil with the add-ons. Bruno G, not going to happen potentially. Look, I'd love to see Bruno G, but Adam Wharton is my favoured target. Alex Scott does look good as well, but, you know, Bournemouth look like they're playing hardball there. So it'll be interesting to see who the bomber is. Do you think that this might be a smokescreen, though? Do you think that actually we might just wait for Arsenal to make a bid and then just shoot in and get him just for the vibes? And finally, we're looking at getting an experienced, older, third-choice goalkeeper back in the squad. I've literally been talking about this for the last year that I've been a content creator, and I'm really glad to see. This is so indicative of change. Like, really it is for me, about how experience is important in the squad, even if they're not there on the pitch. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.